Douglas, the last question. Actually, let me give you a quotation and then a little vignette. Let me tell you a little story and then hand it to you. And the quotation again is you, again from The Strange Death of Europe. Promised throughout their lifetimes that the changes were temporary, that the changes were not real, or that the changes did not signify anything. Europeans discovered that in the lifespan of people now alive, they would become minorities in their own countries, close quote. Now here's the little story I'll tell you. Ages and ages ago, when I was at Oxford myself, I knew Malcolm Muggeridge, the great British journalist. And Malcolm Muggeridge used to say that he often used to say, surveying what he even then saw as the decline of the West, used to say that he felt himself in the same position as a Roman in the 5th century. Yes. And he had a particular affection for Augustine in North Africa, looking across the Mediterranean at the decline of the culture that he loved and hearing about the sack of Rome. And yet, Augustine led a good life, as witness that he comes down to us as Saint Augustine. So the question is, you've said this is almost impossible to reverse. You've said that even the political movement, the populist movement of the recent years, it's very complicated, unlikely to get it quite right. So if it's over, Douglas, if it's over, if in your lifetime it's over, how does Douglas Murray lead a good life? What is the definition? What components of fighting back, of resignation, do right-minded Europeans somehow or other establish some kind of analog to the Benedictine monasteries where they try to keep the cultural law? What will constitute a good life if, as you argue, it all just winds down?
My own view is that it should partly be done by living the life that we thought to be a good life until yesterday. We're very unlikely to come up with an entirely new definition or invention, very unlikely that we're going to invent new gods, very unlikely we're going to come up with new religions, very unlikely we're sitting here in Florence, very unlikely we're going to be able to do anything this good again. So why don't we have the recognition of what a good life was that was very recognizable until yesterday? Now, that can't be done. Roger Scruton and I were talking about this recently.
Roger Scruton, the great conservative philosopher.
Yeah, this can't be done by government diktat. It can't be done because the President of the United States or the Prime Minister of Great Britain says that it should be so. There are certain things they could not do that might make it easier. But this just comes from people. It comes from individuals and people leading by example. When I discuss many of the things that came up in The Strange Death of Europe, sometimes people say to me, you seem, well, some people say, but you don't seem as het up about it. And that must mean that you know it's over, because otherwise you would be more.
Yes, there's a difference between fight and resignation.
Yes.
There's a difference between those two.
And you work out, don't you, as an adult, what it's worth wasting yourself on, and what points you should keep making, and when you've made them enough, and when you've hit your head against that wall enough, and you just have to work it out. And I've said everything I can to try to warn my fellow countrymen and Europeans and Americans and others who've taken the book to heart of what I think is happening. But I don't intend, I've done my best shot at it. And my own view is that after that, you have to live the life that you ought to live in the civilization you enjoy. And you see, it's more than enjoyment, obviously, isn't it? One of the problems, one of the things I wish one could communicate better to people is that all the things that they think are excluding people are not. They're offering people the best chance they'll ever have in their lives to get to civilization, or civilization to get to them. And when people rail against things like this city we're sitting in, think that it epitomizes capitalism and patriarchy and racism and more, I just think, I wish more people could take the attitude that I've taken throughout my life to these things, which is you don't have to be tub-thumping, you don't have to be a wild flag-waving patriot or anything like that, but your attitude should be gratitude. I mean, it's not as if this is nothing. The city we're sitting in is enough for a whole lifetime, and a very, very well-lived lifetime. And it's all there. All of the literature, the books, the art, the thought, the music, everything, it's there. And all you have to do is to reach out and take it and be part of it. And that seems to me, in this culture of hatred and this thing I go into in the Madness of Crowds, of this just endless zero-sum hatred and bitterness and blame, is just to turn that around and say, how about feeling grateful? Because what we have is a blip in human history to have the right to have. And we would be so damn stupid to give it away for nothing.
Douglas Murray, author of The Strange Death of Europe and The Madness of Crowds, thank you.
Thank you.
For Uncommon.
Wow, wow, wow. Absolute eloquence. I mean, Douglas Murray, agree with him, disagree with him, whatever is going to be your passion. He has his detractors and he has those people that actually love him. But you have to say one thing about Douglas Murray. He does not mince words at all. He carefully chooses what he wants to say, sometimes with stinging and biting sarcasm, and sometimes, as he just basically summed up this interview with Peter Robinson for the Hoover Institute, is just an absolute, he just summed everything up. People should have the attitude of gratitude. That your sense of living should be to look around and to say, look at what we have. As a species is what I'm basically saying. As a human species on this planet that we call Earth, that we call our home. And yes, we're divided into nations. We're divided into ethnicities. We're divided into tribes, religion, culture, all of that. But we're all part of humanity. We're all human beings. We're all men and women. And I say that with all due respect to everybody else. Men and women living on this planet. And as he said, where this interview was taking place in Florence, Italy, the beauty, the grandeur, to take a look at history, the Colosseum, the Parthenon, all those places. And it was that's just one city, folks, one city amongst hundreds of thousands of cities all across this planet. He talked about the housing of museums, of books, of libraries, of music, art, science. And it's not that he basically said that he's sort of given up or resigned. He sort of said as he gets older, sort of like you pick your battles. And I think a lot of times when you just start out and you really want to go out there and tell everybody everything, you sort of, you're going after everything and saying, you got to look at this, 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 look at that, over here, over there. And I think in one respect, from what I gleaned from what Douglas was saying, is that if you are going to go out there and you are going to try to pave the way, the pathway for others to follow, is that pick the battles that you're that passionate about, that you really think have some absolute meaning for you and others, that really are going to be a way of changing your life. And those need to be fought. Those battles need to be fought, whether by debate, by discussion, by speech, by writing, whatever. And pick one or two. And then those are the ones that you concentrate on and try to win those battles. Because there's going to be so many others that are going to be alongside you. They're going to pick their own battles. And in that way, we can sort of hone in ourselves to fight what we believe will be the good fight for not only ourselves, but our children, our communities, and to go forward. Anyways, I really, really enjoyed that interview. We're going to do so many more with these folks, but in the meantime, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. We know there's so many other videos and channels out there for you, so we certainly do appreciate you taking the time to take a look at ours. And if we've earned it, we'd love for you to subscribe to the channel, like, share, and follow us. You all know what to do. Check out our other video links here and here. And I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.